Part 183. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1821. This year was the most unstable year since the founding of the People's Republic of China, no less than the collapse of the earth. The Spring Festival has not yet come, and the bad news comes first. Lu Zhang was in the capital at that time, and Feng Qingxiu did not see him in the next 2 or 3 months. He could occasionally hear his tired voice on the phone, and he would hang up after a few words. Feng Qingxiu knew that some things could be undone, and some things could not be undone. She could only guard the rear and appease her family. For the sake of his family and his country, Lu Zhang moved forward arduously without any hesitation. Most of the news about the Wanglu Brigade was obtained from the radio and newspapers. The more detailed part was brought by Zhao Anbang to the 2 old men, Lu's father and Zhou Fengshu, one after another, without giving people any time to react. Perhaps because the sky is high and the emperor is far away, although the people of the Wanglu Brigade felt confused and depressed due to the collapse of the sky and the earth, they needed to continue living, and they quickly put away their grief and returned to calm. The weather had little impact on the Wanglu Brigade, and the summer was another bumper harvest. Thanks to the use of fertilizers, the wheat yield per acre has doubled. The wheat with full grains has been moved into the granary. The villagers are smiling from ear to ear. They don't have to go hungry this year. It's great. However, Lu's father and Zibao were very worried about Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu, who were on the front line of rescue and disaster relief at this moment. When they were handing over the public food, Lu Zhang in the capital defied all opinions and used various investigation materials to explain the upcoming crisis. He withstood the pressure from the outside world and arranged for the local garrison to focus on prevention and evacuate most of the people in a timely manner. The country has saved huge losses and countless lives, and Feng Qingxiu has led the medical team to the front line to save lives and heal the wounded. When talking about Lu Feng and Lu Feng, who are husband and wife, everyone gives them a thumbs up. Lu Zhang was promoted to the rank of deputy commander of the capital military region at the beginning of the year as everyone expected. After this incident, he was directly promoted from deputy to full. Now he is in an important position, assisting the commander and presiding over the work of the military. After the sadness, the conspiracy was completely shattered and the whole country rejoiced. Wang Zhenkuo directly arranged for people to kill pigs and sheep and cook a big pot of vegetables to celebrate. The old men and women who were transferred to the Wanglu Brigade all put on their neatest and best clothes and walked out of the earthen huts that had trapped them for many years. Yellow flowers bloomed on their old faces, their eyes were bright and they were full of energy, as if they were many years younger. "Where is Zibao? Lao Lu, why didn't you see Zibao in such a scene?" Lu Erxian, who was not yet 9 years old, was having fun everywhere. Hearing Zhou Fengshu's question, Lu's father, who was taking Dun Dun and Zhuang to watch the excitement, shook his head at him. This precious grandson was sad at home. After hearing the bad news, he wanted to go to Beijing, but the situation was chaotic and the capital was heavily guarded. There are 5 posts, 1 post, and 10 posts, and outsiders cannot enter Beijing at all. Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu are located in the whirlpool. Lu's father is worried that someone will counterattack, so Zibao cannot make the trip. Zhou Fengshu expressed her understanding, turned back to the Lu family courtyard, pushed open the door of the east wing with one hand, and saw Zibao sitting on the bed, with many letters and photos from different eras in front of him, and holding a picture of his childhood in his hand. A group photo was taken in the capital, wearing a black armband on his arm. Walking over and touching his head, Zhou Fengshu sat on the edge of the bed and said nothing. Zibao raised his head and showed his red eyes. "Tell me, why do people die? Isn't it good to live for a long time? Once you die, you will never see, hear, or see people again." Zhou Fengshu patted him on the shoulder and said, "Silly boy, life and death are inevitable laws and cannot be changed by us. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1822. Zibao felt very uncomfortable, so uncomfortable that he couldn't breathe, and his heart felt like it was splitting. In Zhou Fengshu's eyes, this is a manifestation of love and justice. I joined the army when I was very young. I fought in the north and south. I traveled here and there. The blood was splashed on my face countless times. The brothers and enemies who died in front of me ranged from hundreds of thousands to tens of thousands. But I know that I have no time to be sad or to remember. I have to move forward and shoulder the responsibility, for my family, my country, and my people. Zhou Fengshu said sincerely, Zibao, the past is in the past, you are still young, and the country needs you young men in their prime to support the backbone of the nation. I believe that people in heaven don't want you to be immersed in sorrow all the time. A glimmer of water flashed in Zibao's eyes, and he slowly exhaled, I know, Grandpa Zhou, I will be fine. That's right. Let's go, everyone is waiting outside to eat meat, and your grandpa is also worried about you. Zibao calmed down, put the letters and photos into the box, locked it carefully, and then locked it in the bedside table. Suddenly, he heard Lu Erxian shouting from outside, Brother, brother, look who's here. The joy is beyond words. Zibao's heart moved, and he and Zhou Fengshu came out to take a look, and happened to see Feng Qingxiu carrying a suitcase through the door. Mom! Why did you come without saying hello? Where's Dad? Zibao opened his eyes wide at first, then rushed forward, reached out to take the suitcase, and at the same time complained that Lu Erxian didn't help his mother carry the luggage. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, Your dad is very busy and has no time to leave. I will pick you up. Pick us up, Lu Erxian touched his head, then he was overjoyed and said with his big round eyes, Do you want to go back to the army? I miss my good friend. Feng Qingxiu corrected, It's not the troops returning to Wuchen, it's going to the capital. Capital, the young and old said in unison. Except for Lu Erxian, Zhou Fengshu and Zibao suddenly understood the fact that Lu Jiangren was in the capital. Mom, have you also been transferred to the capital? So we go to the capital to reunite with Dad. Feng Qingxiu smiled slightly, and while holding the hands of her two sons into the yard, she said, Yes, your father took office in the capital in March and April, and I applied for transfer afterwards, but because of many things that happened next, it was not until September that after getting the approval and completing the transfer procedures and moving, I will come to pick you up. I have made a major contribution this year and will have 2 months of vacation. Like Lu Zhang, she had not taken a serious long vacation for several years. However, Lu Zhang is now a busy person, and it is still true that she has the opportunity to return to her hometown and prepare to return the cultural relics and antiques stolen by the Shanghai Cultural Relics Department to their original owners during the holidays. The catastrophe is over, light has arrived, and cultural heritage belonging to the country should no longer be sent overseas. 10 years are really long and fast. Zibao said in surprise, So Mom can stay at home for 2 months? That's great. Yes, that's great, Lu Erxian said, our team kills pigs and sheep. The first thing Mom does when she gets home is to eat meat. Although it's not as delicious as Mom's cooking, it's very popular. Feng Qingxiu smiled and said, You just want to eat, and you don't even want to leave after eating, right? Lu Erxian laughed and refused to admit it. Zhou Fengshu listened to their mother and son talking to each other, looked at the direction of the door, and said strangely, when the children and Lao Chen went home, not to mention how popular they were, why did you come? And there was no movement, only Erxian followed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1823. Without waiting for Feng Qingxiu to answer, Lu Erxiang raised his hand. I discovered it. I discovered that my mother came from the west. Everyone in our brigade was waiting to eat big meat, and no one saw my mother coming back. He puffed out his chest proudly. Zhou Fengshu looked at him suspiciously. Aren't you waiting to eat meat in the brigade office? Among the Lu family's children, Zibao was not around. Yan and Fuebao were practicing calligraphy and painting at Mr. Wen's residence. Dun and Zhuang were with Lu's father. The one who enjoyed watching people killing pigs, slaughtering sheep, and jumping around was not Lu Erxiang. Who is it? He trusted his eyes. Lu Erxiang slapped his head. Uncle and Grandpa asked me to call Grandpa Zhou and eldest brother to eat big meat. Feng Qingxiu looked at Xiang's son helplessly. Zibao said with concern, Mom, why don't you send a telegram when you get home? We can pick you up. Lu Erxiang also reacted, Yes, Mom, you must be very tired walking home from the train station, right? It's really hard. I'll share the meat later, and I'll give you mine to eat. Then thank you Erxiang, regardless of whether it tastes good or not, I accepted it with my heart. After Feng Qingxiu finished speaking, she turned to look at her eldest son, who could not be easily deceived, and said softly, I'm not tired at all. I took a plane to Jinling, took a train from Jinling back to Huihei City, got off the train and took a ride with the wind. The car drove to the production team in the back mountain, where I helped people before when I was practicing medicine, and then we walked back through the mountains, which was only half an hour away. She wanted to give her family a surprise, so she didn't say hello. During the walk, I took out the metal detector and heard many warnings. Although this place had been a battlefield and there might be a lot of warheads, artillery skins and the like, there should also be gold and silver, so I was ready to take the time to dig for it. There will be a lot of places to spend money in the future, so it's better to get more. Moreover, she and Lu Zhang usually choose gold and silver items found along lakes and rivers in the wilderness. Due to the times, there is a high possibility that they are ownerless items. For example, in various courtyards in the city, even if the metal detector beeps frequently, they were not tempted. They might have been hidden by the previous owner, or maybe by the back owner, but it was always a bit hot to hold. Of course, they dug up a small part of the gold and silver jewelry hidden by the demons and monsters. They obtained it by fishing in troubled waters when they raided the house. Like Den Nan's ex-wife Zhang Rong, they also liked to hide it in the underground corner of their house. Zibao didn't know what his mother was planning, so he took her to sit down to rest, poured her water, and asked Lu Erxiang to go find Lu's father and other siblings. I won't be hungry if I don't eat a big meal of meat. My mother just got home and was very tired after walking such a long way. Except for whispering to my uncle, grandfather, or aunt, everyone else would go first. I won't tell you any more. They will see her when she goes out after her mother has rested. Zibao understands the feelings of his fellow villagers very well. Lu Erxiang expressed his understanding and took 2 steps at a time. He first ran to where the old men lived and called Yan and Fuebao. Then he ran to the office of the East Brigade and whispered in Lu's father's ear. Then he went to find Cheng Baoqiu and Wang Quilin. Lu's father, Dun, and Zhuang were naturally surprised to meet each other, so they rushed home without even thinking about dividing the meat. After Cheng Baoqiu and his wife learned about it, they followed him without saying a word. When they arrived home, Fu Bao was sitting in Feng Qingxiu's arms, with his hands around her neck. He didn't look like a young girl at all, but more like a child. The mother and daughter were extremely affectionate. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1824. Seeing Father Lu and Cheng Baoqiu and his wife, Feng Qingxiu quickly stood up and said, Dad, 3 uncles and 3 aunts. The 3 elders nodded. They were very happy to see Feng Qingxiu. Dun Dun and Zhuang Zhuang ran to their mother and hugged her waist. "Mom, are you here to pick us up?" "Yes, I'll pick you up, and we'll go back to the capital together in a month. We haven't seen each other for almost 2 years, and Feng Qingxiu also misses her 5 children, not to mention Yayan. Your grandfather was also transferred to the capital. You can see us when you come back." Yayan has been dependent on his father since he was a child. He lives by himself most of the time. He has been living in the Lu family since he was older. He has no impression of his grandfather, but he often hears Lu Zhang and Feng Qingxiu say that his grandfather is a hero, and they feel sorry for him. Feeling happy, "Where is my dad? He has just been promoted to division commander. He should still be in the Wuchen army, right? This year I received a letter from him saying that he came to see me during the holiday, but he broke his promise again." Feng Qingxiu touched his head. "Your father and your uncle Shen worked on the front line of emergency rescue and disaster relief last year and this year. The task came suddenly. He didn't intentionally break his promise. Your uncle Lu broke his promise to me 100 times, and I didn't. Not angry." Yayan sighed like a young adult. "Okay, I forgive him." Everyone laughed, but also felt sad. As the spouse and child of a soldier, it seems that it has become the norm to spend less time together and more time away from each other. Unless the rank reaches a certain level, like Lu Zhang now, all he has to do is make decisions thousands of miles away. Thinking of Lu Jiang's achievements, Lu's father and Cheng Baoqiu felt very pleased. They did not expect that Lu Zhang would move forward so quickly and steadily, and the courage of his decision-making greatly exceeded their expectations. It is a pity that as his revolutionary comrades, Feng Qingxiu, with her ability and qualifications, should have been promoted long ago instead of still enjoying battalion-level treatment. Feng Qingxiu didn't feel any pity at all. She voluntarily gave up the opportunity for promotion and transferred the hospital where the capital military region headquarters was located. After many years of observation, she found that if one of the couple occupies a high position, the other spouse will have to give up on his position and give up the opportunity for promotion. Almost without exception, even female cadres who do not give up voluntarily will be dismissed. The husband of a high-ranking official suppressed promotion opportunities. He was not promoted for more than 10 or 20 years, so he retired. She was willing to give in because Lu Zhang was more capable of doing practical things. It was destined that only one of the two could be promoted, so giving the opportunity to Lu Zhang was a matter of course. She was a doctor, and she relied on medical skills to save lives and heal the wounded. It had nothing to do with her rank. She didn't care at all about the salary increase. But this also shows that equality between men and women is really empty talk in the workplace. Why don't husbands take the initiative to give in order to support their wives' careers? Instead, they mostly suppress their wives for promotions. Feng Qingxiu shook her head to get rid of the resentment hidden in her chest. "Uncle Joe, when I came here, I heard from Ajiang that the higher UPS have decided to let you return to Beijing to recuperate. There is no conclusion yet on when you will resume work, but the opportunity to return to Beijing means that it is not far away when you are rehabilitated." Zhou Fengxue was stunned for a moment, then laughed loudly, her voice loud and full of joy. Okay, I've finally waited," Zhou Fengxue cried with joy. He went to the battlefield to fight the Japanese. He bled without shedding tears. When he was betrayed by his own people, he was heartbroken and escaped in embarrassment. Now he sees the dawn of hope, and washes away all the charges. Rise high again between heaven and earth, and no longer become an existence that everyone shouts about. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1825. The people who came to pick up Zhou Fengxue came faster than expected. On the third day after Feng Qingxiu returned home, a jeep drove into the Wanglu Brigade. This was the first time a car appeared in the Wanglu Brigade. Everyone, men, women, old and young, heard the sound and ran out to see the strange thing. They shouted and marveled again and again until the car stopped in the open space of the brigade office, and two people wearing semi-old military uniforms got out. Of soldiers. One is in his 30s and the other is in his 40s. Wang Zhenkuo came out of the office. I am the branch secretary of the Wangla Brigade. Two comrades came from afar. What's the matter? Looking at the straight-backed and neatly dressed old man in front of them, the two of them saluted. The older man took out a document from his briefcase and handed it to him. Hello, old comrade, we are from the troops of the Jinling military region stationed in Huihei City. After receiving the order, I came here specially to pick up Zhou Fengshu and send him to the capital to recuperate. This is the message sent by the above. Wang Zhenkuo looked at it carefully and said with a smile on his face, thank you for your hard work, two comrades. I will take you to find Comrade Zhou. He sincerely hoped that the old men and women who were transferred to the Wangla Brigade would be rehabilitated as soon as possible. Even if they could not return to their previous posts, they could live an upright life instead of being bullied as bad elements. People should be divided into good and evil, not based on ingredients. Over the years, he has seen many well-connected and powerful people being rampant and vicious, and they have done countless evil things, but he is powerless to change them and can only ensure that the atmosphere of the Wangla Brigade is clean. After finding the old man's and old lady's residence, Aunt Sue said while drying the quilt, old Zhou is at Xiaoxiu's house. Wang Zhenkuo heard this and transferred to the Lu family. Hearing the laughter in the yard, and thinking of the buildings of the Wangla Brigade and the spiritual outlook of the people, a trace of surprise flashed in the eyes of the two soldiers. They felt better than many towns. Only when you have enough food and clothing can you have such a prosperous scene. The older soldier couldn't help but glance at Wang Zhenkuo, who was banging the door with his hand. Xiaoxiu, Xiaoxiu, is Lao Zhou here with you? Someone has come to take him back to Beijing to recuperate. The laughter in the yard suddenly stopped, and then there was an even louder exclamation. Amidst the exclamations, the door opened, and Lu Erxiang's little black face came into view. Uncle, Grandpa, they want to take Grandpa Zhou away? No, I don't want Grandpa Zhou to leave. Wang Zhenkuo touched his face, which had been tanned last year, and said, you should respect your Grandpa Zhou and ask him if he is willing to leave. Lu Erxiang suddenly became depressed, and even a fool could tell that Grandpa Zhou wanted to return to his job. Zhou Fengshu's hearty and old voice sounded behind him, Xiang, when you and your mother return to the capital, we can meet again. What are you reluctant to do? Grandpa Zhou returned to the capital to buy you a lot of delicious and fun things. Waiting for you. Lu Erxiang's eyes lit up, he turned around and patted Zhou Fengshu's arm with his small claws, then held his arm. Great. They would be able to see each other again soon, and maybe Grandpa Zhou could teach him target shooting. The two people who came to pick up Zhou Fengshu were even more surprised. Although Zhou Fengshu's clothes were shabby, she was very neat. Her patches were densely stitched and her cotton clothes were bloated and thick. She didn't look down and haggard at all as they had imagined. Her face was rosy and she was full of energy. She looked even better than in the photo before the accident. He looks a bit fatter, but looks a bit younger. Is Wangla Brigade really a good place? Even the elderly who are sent to rural areas to participate in labor reform can still have enough food and clothing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1826. Hello, Comrade Zhou. The two of them raised their hands and saluted before they had time to think about it. 3 days later, the plane will fly from the Jinling military region to the capital. We will pick you up and take you to the Jinling military region, along with Comrade Zhao Kui and Zhao Zhao Kui is Zhao Anbang's father. He was able to return to his hometown to recuperate a few years ago, but has never resumed work. Wang Zhenqiu took advantage of the situation and handed the message to Zhou Fengxue. Zhou Fengxue held the message tightly. He didn't expect to be able to go back so soon. Although he couldn't return to his original job immediately, returning to the capital meant that all his past charges were cleared and he had a high chance of returning to work. Okay, I'm going to pack my bags now. The most important thing is to say goodbye to the old guys and juniors. Everyone is happy for him. With Zhou Fengshu's result, will it be far before they can be rehabilitated? Zhou Fengshu only took away a change of clothes and a few common daily necessities. She left the bedding and other daily necessities with her old friend who didn't know when he would be able to leave. Before getting in the car, her eyes slowly passed over the Wanglu brigade, looking at the faces of the fellow villagers. Keep it in mind, and finally decide on the person who sent it to him. Xiaoxiu, let's meet in the capital. Don't worry, we will see you soon. Feng Qingxiu's eyebrows were filled with joy. In her previous life, she had heard people say that those who resumed work during the catastrophe or were able to leave the decentralized areas immediately after the catastrophe were all big bosses. Without connections and skills, they would not be rehabilitated so quickly, because the nationwide redress was held in the 1980s. Early 1990s. In order to celebrate Zhou Fengshu's departure, Feng Qingxiu cooked 2 large tables of delicious dishes at noon, including chicken, fish, meat, and eggs, which were very rich. Seeing the hope of getting rid of the bad elements, Wen Ruya got drunk, touched Fu Bao's 2 braids tied with a red headband, and said with a smile, "The capital, I have been away for too long, and it must have changed a lot. I will give it to the top. I wrote a letter to test it out, saying that I am old and frail, and I don't have much time left. I wonder if I can return to Beijing to recuperate and do my best for the cultural community." The cultural and academic circles are not the same as the military and political circles. They are always at the mercy of others and have a high chance of being rehabilitated. The 2 students who had accompanied him in the past few years, He Qingyan and Wang Mo, nodded one after another and seriously considered the important people they knew. After all, they were also famous figures in the painting world before their disaster, and Wang Mo was the dean of the Shanghai Academy of Fine Arts. Jin Ruoku's eyes lit up, he put his hands on his hands and smiled and said, "Good idea, wait until they remember that we don't know whether it is the year of the monkey or the horse, or it would be better to find a way to contact our colleagues and write letters together." Since ancient times, reading can make people know things wisely, and knowledge is rebellion nonsense. There has been a cultural gap for 10 years, and the shortage of talents in all aspects is extremely urgent. I think it is urgent for the country to rectify this area. It is very likely that the college entrance examination will be resumed. Then we will have a place to play. Unlike Wen Ryu, who devoted himself to calligraphy and painting, Jin Ruoku was an all-rounder among all-rounders. He didn't know anything about physics, chemistry, mechanics, architecture, calligraphy and painting, foreign languages, and mathematics. Before the accident, he didn't know how many universities had invited him to go. Guancheng had only studied with him for a few years, and now he was a senior engineer at a machinery factory in the capital. He had developed and improved several new machines. Feng Qingxiu gave the 2 elders a thumbs up. "I also think the college entrance examination will be resumed. Too many things have happened this year, and the situation has not been completely stabilized. Master, Uncle Jin, if you 2 write letters, just wait until next year." Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1827. Wen Ruyu nodded and said, "That's what I plan to. Anyway, it will be next year in 2 months. After so many years of hard work, a few months is still worth the wait." And Su's heart moved. "Xiaoxiu, tell me, do your family, our family, and Akan Au's family have a chance to redress?" We don't care about the confiscated things. We just want to live like normal people and no longer be trapped by our status. Feng Qingxiu nodded heavily. Yes, there is a big chance. It's just a matter of time. Uncle Su poured wine for Father Lu and said, "We, the old couple, are here today because of Xiaoxiu. I believe Xiaoxiu. We have been waiting for more than 10 or 20 years. As long as we don't die, we can afford it. Our family, I have been a simple scholar for several lifetimes, and I don't want to be buried in a coffin with the name of a bad element and face my ancestors underground." Except for the twins who exchanged letters in Baidawang, the other two sons have not been in contact with them. I wonder if they have severed ties with them. After all, when they first met Feng Qingxiu, they had sent them food. It's been over 10 years, not overnight. The old men and women who lived with them and participated in the labor reform were full of hope for the future. Zhou Fengxue was picked up by a car and had to fly to the capital. The eye-catching people in Wanglu's brigade became more respectful to the remaining old people. Some of them came directly to build relationships and brought eggs and vegetables, which made them laugh and cry. However, Wanglu, most of the folks in the brigade are very kind, and if they can turn around, they will definitely be rewarded. Most of them are kind, not all of them, which means that there are still a few villains in the Wanglu brigade who value their status and do not have contact with bad elements. However, because Wang Zhenqiu is fair in dealing with things and is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, he leads them to live a good life. Every household has relatives and friends instead of being alone, so they dare not make irresponsible remarks for fear of causing trouble, affecting the family, and being ostracized by fellow villagers. Everyone has a strong sense of clan and is not welcomed by the family. If there is any conflict with other families in the future, no one helps. After receiving the telegram that Zhou Fengxue had arrived in Beijing safely, Feng Qingxiu walked on the road of Wanglu Brigade, greeting people and looking around. Everywhere she looked, she saw a completely different scene from when she first came to Wanglu Brigade. The development is really good, you can tell just from the housing buildings, not to mention several large-scale breeding farms. The best house was a bungalow, and Guan Yu and his wife lived in one. Wang Jiao's family asked her to borrow money to build a 4-bedroom bungalow, followed by a brick house, which occupied 1/3 of the Wanglu Brigade, and then half a brick house. There are very few tile-roofed houses, mud tile houses, and adobe thatched houses. There are only 3 or 5 houses. When the wind blows in early winter, the thatched roofs are very dangerous. Avoiding people, she lowered her head and secretly took a look at the metal detector hidden in her sleeve. According to the above prompts, Feng Qingxiu stopped at the unfamiliar Zhao Dazuz's house with a deep look. When the Lu family was first raided, Zhao Dazu was at the forefront. His family was so poor, and most of them were good eaters and lazy people. However, they did not go hungry during the difficult period. Now they have built 5 large tile-roofed houses. Their work points are not reversed. Great, where do you get the money to eat and build a house? Feng Qingxiu deeply suspected that he had taken a lot of gold and silver from the Lu family. Wang Zhenqiu also said this at the beginning. Facts have proved that their suspicions were correct. Zhao Dazuz's family indeed had hidden gold and silver items, and there were quite a lot of them. They were buried in the threshold of their main hall, so it was difficult to arouse others' suspicion. Back to the 60s, the struggle career of a charmed wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1828. There has never been any contact between Zhao Dazuz's family and the Lu family. Zhao Dazuzu and his family usually live in seclusion and are not active in work. They go to the city a lot. I don't know if it is because of something evil in their hearts. Feng Qingxiu sneered in her heart and left, as if she was passing by accidentally. Although money is very useful, if people don't live up to their expectations, just relying on ill-gotten gains will not last long. Thinking that the gold her eldest son had found when he came back from paying homage to Master Shan was exchanged for a tractor, Feng Qingxiu felt that it was necessary to go there for a walk, maybe she would find something else. In fact, when I was walking home over mountains and ridges, I passed by Baishan, and the warning sounds were very frequent. There were ancestors of the Lu family buried under the hilltops and flattened by the graves, so the burial items must be considerable. However, she was not interested in the things in the tomb at all. She was just interested in the scattered gold and silver treasures. Unfortunately, the metal detector could only detect metal, not porcelain, jewelry, wood, etc. The reason why she could find it occasionally was because it was related to gold and silver. Together. Wang Jiao's appearance interrupted her thoughts. Xiaoxiu, why did you come back? I miss you so much. Looking at Wang Jiao, whose skin was slightly less beautiful than when she was young, but whose fair skin was clearly leading a good life, Feng Qingxiu had a smile on her face, and 16 years had passed before she knew it. Cousin, long time no see. How are you doing? It's very good. I eat well and wear well. I've almost saved up the 200 yuan I borrowed from you. Wang Jiao couldn't help but look at her and fussed. Why are you the same as when you were young? You haven't changed at all. So I recognized you at a glance. If someone from our brigade hadn't asked me to find a buyer to sell eggs to them this morning, I wouldn't have known you were back and wouldn't have said hello in advance. Because Wang Jiao has lived in the city for most of these years, she and Zhang Yuejin were involved in many private transactions of the Wanglu Brigade. They were bought, sold, or bartered at her home, thus avoiding the risk of entering the black market. Feng Qingxiu touched her smooth and fair face and smiled happily. Really the same? I feel a lot older this year. You haven't aged at all, you're still as fair and handsome. Wang Jiao nodded vigorously, envious. Go and sit at my house and tell me what kind of cream you usually put on. My house has a bungalow, Laozhang. The windows bought by someone will be brighter inside. When will your house be built? I will ask Laozhang to get glass for you. It will be 100 times better than the paper-made straw ones. Feng Qingxiu pursed her lips and smiled, and did not say that she could get the glass. The house must be built, and our whole family will have to come back sooner or later. As for the glass, I will ask my cousin-in-law for help when the house is built. Wang Jiao hummed, if you don't build it, you will fall behind. Our brigade still has a few mud and thatched houses. That's true, Feng Qingxiu agreed. The two sisters passed by the brigade office and heard a fierce quarrel coming from the office. Worried about Wang Zhenqiu, they quickly walked over and opened the office door. What they saw was a group of educated youths with red faces and thick necks filled with indignation, surrounding Wang Zhenqiu and Wang Dachun. What are you doing? Feng Qingxiu frowned with an intimidating aura. The educated youth who were quarreling fell silent for a moment. They all knew Feng Qingxiu's identity and did not dare to be disrespectful to her. However, their desire to return to the city took over. A female educated youth said, we heard that there are quotas for educated youth to return to the city. Come and find the university captain. The captain said no, the bad elements who were sent to participate in labor reform can leave. Why can't we return to the city? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1829. Feng Qingxiu did not know the name of the female educated youth who spoke, nor did she recognize her. She only knew the group of Zhouzhou, Zhenghuiwei, Xinyushan, and the first few educated youths. This female educated youth was obviously a later one, about 17 or 18 years old. He was old, with a pair of inverted eyebrows on his slender face, and his two narrow eyes, which looked a bit fierce. The 7 or 8 educated youths who loudly echoed the female educated youth present were all new faces, both male and female. The oldest was only in her 20s, and the youngest was only 15 or 16 years old. She was a girl, still childish, with a look of ignorance and confusion. Seems to have been roped in to make up the numbers. Quota for returning to the city, Feng Qingxiu repeated doubtfully, and then remembered the big wave of educated youth returning to the city. Although the large-scale return to the city occurred in the late 1970s and early 1980s, there are now signs of it, and she said, I believe that the big wave of educated youths returning to the city happened in the late 1970s and early 1980s. My uncle is fair in dealing with things. If there is a place to return to the city, he will not hide it from you. Now that he says there is no place, he definitely doesn't have it. Wang Jiao raised her eyebrows and said, that's right. In the past, the quotas for college, recruitment in the city, or recruitment were not evenly distributed between the educated youth spots and our Wanglu brigade, and then voting and recommendations were made to make the final decision? Is it because I'm afraid? You are dissatisfied and are afraid of being gossiped about. Our fellow villagers in the brigade do not need to go back to the city. If there are real quotas, why don't we give them all to you? Why don't you just do what you should do while you have this time to make a fuss? Why don't you compare yourself with Mr. Zhou? Mr. Zhou, before the decentralization, he was a senior general in the army and held an important position. Now he is leaving under the order of the country. Do you have it? Over the years of living in the city, she has experienced a lot. Wang Jiao has long understood the reason why educated youths go to the mountains and countryside. Isn't it because the country cannot place educated youths with urban household registrations, so they are sent to the countryside to study for re-education of poor peasants? There was no way to accommodate them 6 or 7 years ago, and there is still no way now. They will certainly not be given the opportunity to return to the city and cause chaos. Most of the powerful people arranged for their younger generations to join the army and work, so as to avoid jumping in the queue. A very small number of cotter children and ordinary children without power went to the mountains and countryside. If the former educated youth wanted to go back, their families had to get a quota to return to the city. It's a breeze. Of course not all of them, because there are many people who have a more positive attitude and are willing to contribute to national construction and take the initiative to go to the mountains and countryside. It was only in the first 2 years that I took the initiative to go to the mountains and countryside. I was full of enthusiasm. However, after jumping in the queue, it was like being splashed with a bucket of cold water in the winter. I could not enjoy it and had to work in the fields. Many lives were unsatisfactory. Therefore, there are many educated youths nowadays. They all want to return to the city, but a large number of them are not welcomed by their families when they go home to visit relatives because of housing, survival, and other issues. How can they return to the city now? Wang Jiao's sharp-tongued words made all the educated youth angry but speechless. Wang Zhenqiu sighed. As he got older, his temper became gentler. He also understood the desire of these educated youths to go home. He said slowly, the country has not issued documents allowing educated youths to return to the city. Our brigade does not have the quota to return to the city. If so, I will definitely tell you that it will be up to you to compete fairly to decide the final candidate to return to the city. You have the time to cause trouble, so why not perform well? If you perform well, I will give you a chance. If you perform poorly, I will be sorry. My father is good enough to you. When you first joined the team, you were a large group of educated youths from all over the world. You were assigned to various brigades. Naturally, you also have people you know. Go and find out whether their living environment is similar to yours. Are you impatient to make trouble with my father now because of the non-existent quota of returning to the city? Back to the 60s, The Struggle Career of a Charmed Wife. Author, Ning Xiaobai. Chapter 1830. After hearing Wang Jiao's words, the two female educated youths looked extremely frightened. Compared with the educated youths who jumped in the same batch and were assigned to other places, their lives are really good. Although the work is tiring and shopping is inconvenient, with the help of machinery such as tractors and threshers, farming and harvesting are better than other brigades have it easy, and they won't go hungry all year round. On average, they have more food rations than in the city. They can also eat chicken, duck, fish, meat, and eggs every year. Half of the educated youths get married and have children after living here for 1 or 2 years. They don't want to back to the city. The most important thing is that they are safe. The folks and cotters of the Wangla Brigade are upright and have strict management. They will not stop those who are willing to marry locals, and they will not force those who are unwilling to marry, and no one will do anything to female educated youths. If they have evil intentions, they will not be allowed to go home to visit relatives without any reason, and their letters and packages will not be withheld. The youngest educated youth tugged on the sleeve of the educated youth who spoke first. Sister Licia, let's listen to the captain and go back. Her eldest sister was one of the first batch of educated youths to go to the mountains and countryside. She took the initiative to sign up, but ended up being buried forever in the place where she jumped in line. Because she was insulted by the local party secretary's second-rate son, she didn't want to marry that second-rate son, and there was no hope of returning to the city. Hanged himself with a rope. Their family had no news about their eldest sister for several years, until someone finally came back to the city to visit relatives and told them secretly. Therefore, when she came to the Wangla Brigade to jump in line, she was frightened and guarded day and night, fearing that she would follow in her sister's footsteps. After half a year, she gradually relaxed and understood the difference between the countryside and the countryside. She liked the Wangla Brigade and was grateful to Party Secretary Wang for his care for them. Favor. Licia shook off her hand. No, I must be right. Feng Qingxue frowned. Don't you understand people's words? Didn't you say that? I'll tell you, if there is a quota, what's the point of continuing to pester? If you have this time, take advantage of the leisure time. Why not go back to study? Maybe when the college entrance examination will be resumed, you will have the opportunity to take it, and then you can leave here and go back to the city. 2 male educated youths' eyes lit up and they asked impatiently, will the country resume the college entrance examination? Feng Qingxue is a family member of a senior general in the army, so her words must not be groundless. Feng Qingxue glanced at them and smiled slightly. The country is in desperate need of development, but there is a shortage of talent. There is a high possibility of resuming the college entrance examination. You are all educated young people. You came here after graduating from junior high school and high school. Review your homework carefully. If the college entrance examination really resumes, you can take it directly and don't fight unprepared. Wang Zhenqiu looked excited. Xiaoxiu, I heard you say that all the young people in our brigade have to pick up their textbooks. Yes, uncle, I was just about to tell you about this. I think there will be news about this in less than a year. The teachers in our school are better than those in the city. There are 2 review classes for educated young people under the age of 30 who are willing to review. Whether they are educated youth or local young people, I will also ask Tianzi, Au, and Jojo to participate in the review. They work during the day and can study at night. I have collected a lot of review materials and will bring them to you later.